Hi students, I hope you are doing well. Yesterday we have done first video. Now we are going to see the continuous video of previous. Right? In the last video we have discussed basics and terminology of thermodynamics. Now we are going to see thermodynamics variables. Yes, consider as a chamber or system. This is a cylinder or system. Or system with gas. Okay, gas was filled in this chamber. Next, see, to explain this system or cylinder, we required some variables. What are those variables? Let us write on the board. Temperature, pressure, volume, enthalpy, and entropy. So temperature, pressure, volume, and enthalpy, entropy. These are thermodynamics variables which are required to define or explain the system completely. Right? Let me write on the board the definition of thermodynamics variables. The variables which are used to define or explain the state of system are called thermodynamic variables. Variables. Understood all of you? Yes, temperature, pressure, volume, and enthalpy, entropy are required to explain the system or define the system, are called thermodynamic variables. Yes. Now we have seen thermodynamics variables. To explain or define the system, we require definitely temperature, pressure, volume, entropy, and enthalpy. Right now, we are going to see, let us see types of thermodynamic variables. Dynamic variables. Right? Thermodynamics variables are divided into two parts or two types. Yes. First one, extensive properties. Second one is intensive properties. Now there is a trick to understand. Okay. Soon, right? Yeah. Extensive properties depends on. Let me write on the board just like only. Yes. Which depends on the mass. Or you can write it. Yes, which does not depends on the mass. on the mass. Right? Based on this trick, okay, we can write the definition of extensive properties as well as intensive properties. Now let us write the definition of this. The properties which depends on the mass are called thermodynamics. Extensive properties are called properties. Now based on this trick we can write the definition of intensive properties. How to write? Yes, the properties which does not depends on the mass, are called intensive properties. Easy to remember the definition of intensive properties as well as extensive properties, right? First of all, you have to divide it into two parts, right? Two types. First one is extensive property and the second one is intensive property. Write this small point, okay? Based on that we can write the definition. Here also you have to write a small point, that is what depends on the mass. Based on this you can define the intensive property. Here based on this point you can write the definition, complete definition of intensive property. Here extensive property, intensive property was written. The definition we have completed. Yes. Now let us see examples of thermodynamics variables, types of variables. Just now we have completed. So now example of extensive properties and intensive properties. Now let us write actually. So how to write that examples of extensive properties based on the mass, right? So let me write on the board. Yes, moles, internal energy, enthalpy, entropy, and Gibbs energy. Gibbs energy. Okay. So which depends on the mass. So based on that we can write examples under extensive properties. Moles, internal energy, enthalpy, entropy, Gibbs energy. First of all, moles, you know that number of moles depends on the mass. Internal energy also depends on the mass. Okay, this energy is influenced by the mass. And enthalpy, energy change also influenced by the mass. Next, entropy, randomness of particles or atoms in the system, okay, are based on or depends on the mass. Next, Gibbs energy changes also depends on the mass. Let us see examples of intensive properties. Temperature, pressure, concentration, concentration, molar heat capacity, molar heat capacity, molar enthalpy, molar enthalpy. Next, specific heat capacity, specific heat capacity, capacity, etc. These are intensive properties which does not depends on the mass. Yes, temperature does not depends on the mass. Pressure also does not depends on the mass. So based on this, next, concentration does not depends on the mass. Yes, I am going to make you understand. Molar heat capacity does not depends on the mass. Molar enthalpy does not depends on the mass. Specific heat capacity also does not depends on the mass. So all those things comes under the intensive properties. These are examples comes under the extensive properties. Now there is a trick to understand intensive properties as well as extensive properties. Now let us see on the board. Okay, now see. Yes, now trick to understand extensive properties and intensive properties. Now there is a trick based on that. We are going to understand, we are going to remember those properties for a long time to secure good marks in various competitive exams. Now, trick to understand, intensive properties, extensive properties and intensive properties. Now, see that there is a system. To explain it, we required some variables. You know that. That is what? Temperature, pressure, concentration, number of moles, and enthalpy, entropy, etc. Right? Now see that. So consider as another room. Okay? Make it two halves. Right? We have the box like this. Make it two halves. Okay? Like this, two halves. So both the halves having same pressure with air. And both the halves having same temperature. Right? So now this box is divided into two halves, and also this thermodynamics variables also divided into two halves. Now these are extensive properties, these are intensive properties, right? The properties which are undergoes of itself or belongs to extensive properties. The properties those does not undergoes of which are belongs to intensive properties. Now let me write on the board. Temperature is same in the both halves, two halves of the room. So let me write on the board. Temperature is belongs to intensive property. Next, pressure also belongs to intensive property. Right? Now, concentration. Later I make you understand which belongs to some calculation. Right? So that understanding will be done only that concentration by calculation. Now see, number of moles become off, which belongs to extensive properties. Next, enthalpy also belongs to extensive property, become off. Next, entropy also belongs to extensive properties. Now one more is there, what? Okay, concentration already we have done, and the number of moles also we have done. Yes, enthalpy we have done, and entropy also we have done. Now concentration was left, so concentration is equal to N by V according to molarity, right? the concentration is equal to moles per volume. Okay. So now based on this extensive properties and intensive properties, C is equal to, N is equal to how much they have taken? N by 2 of divided by V become of, because volume also become of. Here volume will be written. Okay. So volume become of because which belongs to extensive properties. Next 2 to cancel. What we have to get? So C is equal to N by V. So based on this calculation or formula, the concentration is not changing. It does not change, which does not depends on the mass. So that's what concentration belongs to intensive property, right? So apart from this temperature, pressure and concentration, okay, and more properties are belongs to intensive properties. Those are molar heat capacity, molar capacity, next molar enthalpy, next and molar heat capacity and molar enthalpy, okay, specific heat capacity. Heat capacity. So apart from this temperature, pressure and concentration, extra 3 also, these 3 also belongs to intensive property, because molar and specific. This molar, okay, belongs to 1 mole, right? Depends on the 1 mole. Specific belongs to 1 gram. So that's what molar heat capacity, molar enthalpy, specific heat capacity belongs to intensive properties, right? Let us see some test questions which comes in NEET, JEE and AIMS competitive exams. Let us see that example questions.
Start.
Yes. Question number 1. Question number 1. Which of the following is intensive property? Intensive property. Now let me write the options. First one, moles, molar heat capacity, option B, molar heat capacity, then internal energy, C, energy, option D, internal energy and volume. Dear students, you try to find out that right answer, okay, and you comment me that answer, okay. Now see, moles belongs to extensive property. This is not a suitable option for this given question. Next, internal energy also belongs to extensive property. So this is not a suitable answer for this suitable option to the given question. Next, volume also belongs to extensive property. So this is not a right option to given question. Now what is the answer? Molar heat capacities does not depends on the mass. So that's what it belongs to. It does not depends on the mass. So this is the right answer. This is the right option for the given question. This is molar heat capacity's intensive property. This is right. Option B is right. So now that a continuous video will be done tomorrow, and see the video, share it and like it. Thank you.